From homeless to millionaire, the story of a black man inspired by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Isabella couldn't believe the headline flashing on every screen in San Francisco's busiest cafe. That explosive story about a man who went from sleeping on park benches to owning skyscrapers. From homeless to millionaire, the story of a black man inspired by Elon Musk and Donald Trump. It sounded too wild to be true. Yet here it was, pulsing like a heartbeat across the city. Just like the electricity that charged the air around Silicon Valley, Isabella's fingers trembled as she sipped her coffee, the bitter taste grounding her. She'd never imagined her own story would brush so close to something this big, this charged, with dreams, fame, and a past clawing at the surface. Elon Musk had just picked her for a career-defining project, a chance to rewrite her future. Everyone around her buzzed with excitement, but inside, her chest felt tight, like a storm was brewing. How did she get here? The same question gnawed at Isabella, especially when she remembered the tangled threads of her family's hidden past. Shadows no one talked about, but she could never shake. Her phone vibrated sharply. A message from Samuel. That name alone turned her stomach cold. He was her rival in the tech world. Charming, slick, impossible to read. People said he had a brilliant mind. But Isabella knew there was more. Secrets. Dark, tangled secrets about her childhood that could upend everything she'd believed about herself. The message wasn't just a jolt. It was a challenge, or maybe a warning. I know who you really are. Those words burned on the screen. Was Samuel threatening her? Offering a lifeline? The cafe suddenly felt smaller, the chatter around her dulling into a background hum she couldn't focus on. Her thoughts scrambled, racing faster than her heart. Could she risk confronting her past? Or was it safer to dive headfirst into Elon's bright future, where success might erase old ghosts? Outside, the city pulsated. Bright lights slicing through fog, people chasing their own dreams and demons. Isabella's hands clenched around her cup. The weight of expectation pressed down hard, making her throat dry, her legs weak. Was she ready to gamble everything to uncover the truth? Or would it bind her forever in a cage she didn't even know existed? A sudden shout from the street spilled into the room. She looked up, eyes sharp, searching. Somewhere between the unfolding chaos of the city and the sticky heat of her own nerves, one thing was painfully clear. Isabella stood at a crossroads, and whichever path she chose, nothing would ever be the same again. What secret did Samuel hold that could change everything? And how far was Isabella willing to go? To risk it all, to break free, or be trapped forever in the shadows? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, What city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the diff. Isabela Sarte Reci sentía el peso de la mensaje de Samuel colgado en el aire como una fruta rapa, lista para azotar. Los patrones chaterrantes entrando al café por la mañana like lienta y sí. Querría sacar las palabras y permite trancar la lista. La vía librante café tembló el techo del aviento. ¡Wow! Now, the Alliance sees the perfect hanging point of the modern scientist story. It's deeply ingrained into American culture. Own? Intriga. Disruptan la atmósfera. Isabela se miró como a una compañía salienta de una imagen de pantalla. Ella se quedó para ser consperta de impaciencia. Esta noticia es que sí se le señala con cariño. No hay más explicaciones para preocuparse. The Pamen. Isabela sentía el peso de la mensaje de Samuel junto a una compañía. Tiene que responder. The way. Vaya platicando. I don't. I intendo. A massive crackdown in the tech industry, shouted a man, wide-eyed. Elon Musk has been implicated in a scandal connected to human trafficking in Silicon Valley. The words hit her like a punch. Whispers crackled like static electricity, spreading through the cafe, raising the temperature of the air with every speculation. No way! That can't be true! A woman exclaimed, her hands shaking around a steaming cup. He's been a beacon of hope for so many. Isabela's stomach twisted. She thought of the project Musk had selected her for. What did this mean for her future? The barista dropped a mug, the glass shattering, echoing the sudden break in reality. The excitement of a moment before turned to horror, uncertainty rippling through her. In the back of her mind, Samuel's words replayed. I know who you really are. Was it possible? Did he know about Elon? Or perhaps more about her than she cared to admit? The crowd grew denser, voices blending into a cacophony. Someone screamed. Isabela turned, her heart drumming a frantic beat. A man, wild-eyed and disheveled, burst through the door, gasping for breath. He grabbed the nearest bystander's arm. It's true! It's all true! They're everywhere! He tried to catch breath, panic gleaming in his eyes. They've been hiding in plain sight. I saw them! Her legs turned to jelly. The words echoed in her mind, tangling with her fear, her insecurities. What had she stumbled into? The tension in the cafe shifted. Heads began to shake, disbelief clouding the air thicker than ever. Doubt gnawed at her, twisting her gut. Could all of this be connected back to her? As the crowd began to murmur and pressure mounted, Samuel's smirk slipped into her thoughts. His potential secrets dancing just out of reach. What if he knew about her? Her shaky past? Or something darker that connected them? Suddenly, a loud crash erupted outside. People scattered in a panic, pushing each other as adrenaline surged through the cafe. Isabela stumbled back, instinctively drawing a breath. That startled gasp filled the air as something heavy fell, shaking the very foundations of her certainty. In the chaos, her phone buzzed again, vibrating violently against the table. practically pleading for her attention. The screen lit up with Samuel's name, a fresh message. The cafe hushed for a moment as everyone froze and all eyes fell to her. Meet me. ... Ow! Now, at the corner, I have the proof. A hollow feeling settled in her chest. Isabella was torn, the weight of choice heavy upon her. What could Samuel have revealed? And what could it possibly mean for everything she thought she knew? She stared at the crowd, faces lit up by uncertainty and fear. Would she chase the truth or run from it? As the world swirled in chaos around her, she realized one undeniable truth. She stood at the brink of a darker reality. Her gut twisted again, knowing that whatever choice she made next would drag her deeper into this storm. The noise of the cafe faded into a quiet hum as Isabella sat still, her heart pounding in her chest. The message stared back at her, each word a dagger twisting deeper. I know who you really are. It felt like a dark cloud hovering overhead, threatening to rain down chaos. Hey, you okay? A voice pulled her back. It was Jenna, her friend from the engineering team, concern etching lines across her face. Isabella forced a smile, but it felt stretched, like a rubber band ready to snap. Yeah, just deep in thought. She pushed her phone down, but the words lingered, echoing in her mind. How could Samuel know anything? The very secrets she kept buried seemed to rise, rattling her like an old skeleton in a closet. A sudden crash broke through her thoughts. The cafe's front door flew open, and a disheveled man stumbled inside, his eyes wild. "Help! Someone's been shot!" His voice was a piercing cry that settled over the cafe like a heavy blanket. Gasps erupted around her. People shifted uneasily, looking to one another for reassurance. Isabella's heart sank. A shooting? In this part of the city? Her stomach twisted as adrenaline kicked in. What? Jenna's voice was barely a whisper. He said, "Shot?" The crowd began to murmur, a ripple of panic spreading like wildfire. Isabella felt the cold fingers of fear clutching at her throat. She looked back at the man, who was now pleading with the crowd. "Call an ambulance! It's chaos out there!" he shouted, and Isabella's mind raced. She could see through the window now, a commotion outside. A few blocks down, a group of people had gathered, some screaming, some crying. The sounds of sirens echoed, growing nearer. "Come on, let's get outside," Jenna urged, her voice filled with urgency. They crammed through the cafe door, stepping into a scene that looked like something out of a nightmare. There, on the sidewalk, a figure lay sprawled, surrounded by chaos. Paramedics worked frantically, their movements sharp and precise. Someone was yelling for a doctor, their voice pitched with panic. Isabella felt the blood drain from her face. "Is that? No, it can't be," she whispered, straining for a better view. Familiar features began to materialize, and her breath hitched. "Samuel!" The name slipped from her lips, barely audible over the chaos. It was him, lying still, a pool of crimson spreading beneath him. The shock felt like icy water poured over her. In that moment, everything shifted. She remembered Samuel's message, the challenge, the threat, the truth he claimed to hold. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The secrets she feared were now bursting open like floodgates. And as she gripped Jenna's arm, she realized something crushing. A part of her had secretly wanted him to confront her. Ha 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 ha! To unlock those hidden doors. Jenna's eyes widened. Isabella, do you know him? I don't know. Not like that. But I have to. We need to find out. Isabella fought against the overwhelming urge to retreat, to run from the realities, smashing against her like waves. As the ambulance arrived, lights flashing, chaos now becoming more organized, Isabella could feel a storm inside her, a desperate thirst for answers, for clarity. What had Samuel been hiding? Why was he here? What did this mean for her future? The crowd's murmurs thickened, filled with uncertainty and rising questions. And all Isabella could do was stare, heart racing, at the man who had challenged her world. Who was he really? And how far did his secrets tangle with her own? As the world pressed in, Isabella felt herself standing at the edge of something terrifying and vast. Everything was about to change. Isabella's heart raced as she watched the paramedics rush to Samuel's side. The world around her seemed to blur, emotions crashing in waves. She barely registered Jenna's voice amidst the chaos, her friend pulling her back from the edge of panic. Isabella, we need to go! Jenna urged, her eyes scanning the unfolding scene. But Isabella couldn't move. Her feet felt glued to the ground. Samuel lay there, blood pooling around him, and everything inside her screamed to help. "Call an ambulance!" someone shouted, echoing the man who had first burst into the cafe. It was too late. The sirens wailed near, but they wouldn't reach him in time. Not if he was already slipping away. As the paramedics worked, Isabella could see Samuel's face, pale and drained. Memories of their interactions flooded back. His charming smile, the way he always had a compliment for her, the way he'd laughed. And now, he was fighting for his life right in front of her. A wave of uncertainty washed over her as she looked closer. He was different than she remembered. Disheveled, strained, the fight in him almost gone. A chill crept up her spine. What had he been involved in? Had his secrets caught up with him? Suddenly, the crowd gasped. A woman, dressed in all black, pushed through the throng with remarkable force. Her eyes were fiery, filled with urgency. Without a moment's hesitation, she knelt beside Samuel, placing a hand on his forehead. The paramedics stepped back, confusion washing over their faces. "What are you doing?" one asked. But the woman didn't answer. She whispered something, a long string of words Isabella couldn't catch, but it felt like a prayer being murmured over a dying man. Just as quickly as she arrived, the woman pulled back. The paramedics exchanged glances, uncertain what to do as the woman stepped closer, speaking more forcefully now. "I can help him. You don't understand. He is special." Isabella's heart plummeted. Special? What could that possibly mean? Before she could process it, the woman reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small vial filled with a shimmering golden liquid. She held it just above Samuel, her eyes narrowing. "Give me a chance," she urged, her voice a fierce tremor. "Let me save him!" Chaos erupted. "No! You can't do that!" shouted a bystander. "You don't even know what that is!" Panic rippled through the crowd, faces twisted in disbelief. Isabella's hands trembled. She felt lightheaded. "What is going on?" she whispered, her voice wobbling. caught between fear and dread. Could the secrets they all harbored be darker than they imagined? Then, Samuel's eyes flickered open. For a brief moment, his gaze found Isabella's, and time froze. Her heart collapsed under the weight of unspoken questions. "Help," he croaked, his voice raw, yet still somehow familiar. Before anyone could react, before Isabella could cry out or rush forward, the woman tilted the vial over Samuel's mouth, pouring the swirling liquid inside. His body convulsed, a horrible jolt that made the crowd gasp anew. Panic spread like wildfire. "Stop!" someone screamed. The atmosphere crackled with fear and disbelief. His eyes bulged, his body thrashing violently against the pavement. And Isabella squeezed her eyes shut, desperate to wake up from this nightmare. Time stretched unbearably until it snapped. Samuel's body fell still. A dreadful silence settled over the crowd. The air felt thick. As the woman's fingers brushed his face, an electric pulse zapped through the air, reverberating off the walls like a thunderclap. Isabella's breath caught. What had this woman done? And who was Samuel really? The questions exploded within her, each one heavier than the last. A siren blared in the distance, cutting through the tension. But she couldn't tear her gaze away from the spectacle before her. Samuel's fate, and now the fate of the truth they had all skirted around, lay before them. The woman's face turned toward Isabella, eyes piercing her soul. "You need to wake up to the darkness around you," she declared, voice steady, yet ominous. "This isn't just about him, it's about you." Isabella felt her heart skip, every fiber of her being igniting with uncertainty. What darkness? What did she mean? And just like that, the world tilted again. Everything she thought she was ready to face felt childish and naive in comparison to the world that now thrust itself into view. Would Samuel return? How deep did this rabbit hole go, and what did this mean for her future? As the fear gripped her tighter, one undeniable truth wormed its way into her thoughts. Some secrets weren't meant to stay buried. Isabella stood frozen, the weight of Samuel's words pressing against her chest. "I know who you really are." They echoed in her mind. Relentless, urgent. The cafe hummed around her, but she felt a sudden chill creeping in. What could he possibly know? Her heart raced, each beat a drum, reminding her of the tightrope she was walking. Then chaos erupted outside. A loud crash shattered the murmur of conversation. Glass shattered. People screamed, instinctively ducking and covering. The cafe went silent as everyone turned toward the source of the noise. Isabella peered out the window, her pulse quickening. A car had crashed into a street lamp, debris scattering like confetti. But amidst the wreckage, a figure emerged, staggering into the street. It was a man, blood streaming from his forehead, clothes torn and smeared with dirt. He raised a hand, as if asking for help, then collapsed. The crowd gasped, wide eyes fixed on him. Isabella's heart lurched. Suddenly, Samuel was beside her, urgency lighting his eyes. "We need to help him!" he shouted, his charm replaced by raw panic. Together they rushed outside, the cool air biting at their faces. As they reached the man, Isabella's breath caught in her throat. The man was familiar, too familiar. It was her brother, Marcus. She hadn't seen him in years. Her hands shook, the truth washing over her like a cold wave. Marcus had disappeared into the shadows of their past, lost in a world Isabella had fought so hard to escape. "Marcus!" she cried, kneeling beside him. "What happened? Are you hurt?" But he looked up at her with wild eyes, filled with confusion and pain. His gaze darted around, landing on Samuel, whose face had gone pale. "Isabella!" he gasped, trembling. "They found out! They know about you, about us!" Isabella's heart dropped, the world around her spinning. What secrets did Marcus hold? What do you mean? Samuel's expression shifted, revealing something deeper in his eyes. Fear? Recognition? She could almost see the pieces fitting together in his mind, just out of reach. "What are you talking about?" Isabella pressed, desperate for clarity. The people around her were murmuring, some pulling out their phones, snapping pictures, missing the weight of the moment. Suddenly, a memory flickered through Isabella's mind. Whispers of family secrets, of shameful things meant to be hidden. The police sirens wailed in the distance, drawing closer, pulling her back to the present. Yet, in those seconds, a truth bubbled up, threatening to break free. "Marcus, is this about the past? What did you find out?" She felt the crowd press in, their curiosity stifling, the tension thickening. His gaze flickered to Samuel, the lines of distress etched deep in his brow. "It's not just about you, Isabella. It's about everything we've lost and who we really are." As the sirens wailed louder, Samuel took a step closer to Isabella, his expression unreadable. But she saw the uncertainty there, mixing with something else. Was he suddenly a threat, or was he the ally she never knew she needed? The crowd surged forward, some trying to help Marcus, others just spectators to the chaos. The weight of her brother's words hung in the air. Secrets swirled like the fog outside. Thick and suffocating, Isabella's heart raced, the sense of a looming storm pressing down on her. Was she ready to face the truth? Or would stepping further into this chaos expose her to demons she had buried deep? And as the sirens closed in, chaos pulsating around her, one question burned louder than the others. What else was hidden in the shadows, waiting to emerge? Isabella's heart raced as she sat, trapped in her own storm of thoughts. She was at a crucial point in her life, balancing between the weight of her past and the bright tapestry of her future. Outside, the city thrummed with energy, and inside, a silence enveloped her, thick and full of questions. Just then, another vibration jolted her. Samuel's message lingered, like a shadow creeping over her light. She took a deep breath, steeling herself to reply. "What do you know?" she typed, heart pounding in her chest. The answer felt bigger than her, like it could explode into her reality at any moment. Suddenly, the cafe's doors swung open. A gust of chaotic energy flooded the room, pulling all eyes toward the entrance. A man stumbled in, wild-eyed, clothes torn and stained. Panic washed over his face, and Isabella tore her gaze from her phone, drawn in by the urgency of the scene. "There's been an accident! An explosion!" the man shouted, voice quivering with fear. Murmurs broke out in the cafe as people processed his words, fear weaving its way through the crowd. Isabella felt a cold shiver. Her palms grew clammy. "Explosion? Where?" The vibrant cityscape outside now felt threatening, a shadow lurking just out of view. The barista dropped the coffee pot, shattering glass across the floor as chaos unleashed. With a shared sense of dread, the other patrons shuffled toward the windows. Isabella joined them, her heart thrumming out an urgent rhythm. Fog rolled back, just enough to see smoke rising in the distance. A tall building was enveloped. Orange flames danced against gray and muted skies. In that moment, her phone rang. She instinctively answered, breath caught in her throat. Isabella? Samuel. His voice was sharp, slicing through her rising panic. You need to listen to me. I know the reason behind the explosion. It's connected to your family. The world spun as heat rose in her cheeks. What do you mean? She demanded, trying to grasp the weight of his words. He hesitated, tension crackling through the line. Your father. He wasn't just a mechanic in San Francisco. He was involved with some dangerous people. The explosion, it's all tied to them. Isabella felt the ground drop beneath her. Memories flooded back. The family whispers late at night. The shifty looks when names were mentioned. That can't be true, she gasped. But the denial felt weak, even to her own ears. She instinctively grabbed the edge of a table for support, her mind racing. Samuel's revelation shattered everything she thought she knew. The city shrank around her, and the shadows of her past rallied, clinging tighter than ever. She forced her eyes away from the chaos outside. The fear etched on her neighbors' faces, a mirror of her own turmoil. Isabella took a deep breath, realizing she had opened a Pandora's box. Could Samuel truly know the truths bound to her blood? And what did this mean for her future with Elon? Could success really exist wrapped in the chains of such a dark family history? The weight of those questions hung heavy in the air, echoing louder than the sirens streaking through the streets. Everything was shifting, scrambling, like the smoke that filled the sky. Would she have the courage to confront the demons of her past, or would she let them consume her altogether? As she stood in that crowded cafe, a new chapter began to unfold, not just of her life, and deep down, she felt an unsettling truth. The answers she sought might just lead her to the darkest corners of herself and the city she thought she knew. Isabella felt her breath hitched as the world around her dimmed. Her eyes narrowed at the buzzing screen, Samuel's message looming like a storm cloud. Her heart drummed in her ears, panic painting her thoughts with shadows. I know who you really are. She tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just his usual mind games, a ploy to get under her skin. But the weight of those words pressed down like lead. The cafe felt stifling, the buzz of conversation and laughter morphing into a dull roar. She barely noticed a couple arguing nearby, voices rising in angry crescendos, their faces flushed and distorted in her peripheral vision. The sudden noise sliced through her focus. A shrill siren wailed outside, causing a ripple of tension to pulse through the crowd. People instinctively turned toward the window, and curiosity replaced Isabella's spiral of anxiety for a fleeting moment. But then, with an explosive crash, something heavy slammed against the cafe door. It banged open, slamming against the wall. All eyes snapped to the door as a man staggered in, wild-eyed, clothes ripped, drenched in sweat and grime. His labored breathing echoed around the room. "Help! They're after me!" Panic spread like wildfire. Isabella's heart raced again. Each beat quicker than the last. She couldn't tear her gaze away. Who was this man? What had he just escaped? A couple of patrons jumped up, scanning the street outside, face-palming, judging whether to run or call the police. The barista fumbled with her phone. "It's not safe here," he shouted, voice cracking. "They'll come for me." His eyes darted around, searching, wild terror etched on his features. And then he locked eyes with Isabella. The world narrowed for a moment, the noise fading into silence. He pointed, and something in his voice fell heavy like concrete. You have to understand. It's..." Before he could finish, a loud crack rang out from outside, sharp and shocking, like thunder. Another roar of chaos erupted as more figures surged into view. Men in dark suits, a flurry of motion, their faces obscured. Isabella's breath quickened, confusion mixing with fear. The man stumbled back, bumping into a table. "No, they're here!" A flash of recognition ignited in Isabella's mind, jarring her like a bolt of electricity. His face. It was someone she knew. She couldn't place when, but there was a glint of familiarity. Right before her, he was someone from her past too. Suddenly, the door burst open wider, and the suited men rushed in, eyes scanning furiously as if hunting prey. Isabella's stomach sank. "Isabella!" One of the men yelled her name, aggression lacing his tone, slicing through the air like a knife. Step away from him. Time slowed. Her heart pounded fiercely. The cafe bursting with confusion. People shouting and scrambling for exit. Why did he recognize her? Why did they? Her world suddenly felt like it was spiraling into chaos. The man faltered, terror spreading across his face. "Don't trust them, Isabella. They know." And then, bang! A shot. Everything shattered. The cafe erupted into screams. The sweet aroma of coffee mixing with the acrid stench of fear. Isabella's mind reeled. What secret lay buried beneath the chaos? Who was this man who had just stepped from her memories, dragging an unimaginable truth along with him? Every thought collided, a web of confusion wrapping tighter around her. As panic surged, she took a step toward the door, heart racing. Where would the chaos lead her? How deep did this rabbit hole go? All she knew was that the path ahead was no longer clear. Isabella's heart thundered, the echo of chaos swirling around her. She took a step toward the door, adrenaline morphing fear into instinct. The sight of the man in front of her, her brother, tangled her mind. Memories long buried rose to the surface, and she felt each heartbeat thrum with uncertainty. "Don't trust them, Isabella!" Marcus's voice rang louder than the chaos. Before she could respond, the suited men pushed forward, their features hard-edged, eyes focused like hawks. "Step away from him!" the lead man shouted again. But panic shot through Isabella. The cafe erupted into screams, chairs scraping against the ground, and her pulse quickened. But then something shifted. The air felt different, charged, as if the world was holding its breath. Samuel's face hardened. Brows knitted as he stepped closer to Marcus. The suited men hesitated, shifting their attention, confusion creeping onto their faces. "Is she really worth it?" one of them sneered, glancing sideways at Samuel. You know what's coming, don't you? Samuel's jaw clenched. What do you mean? He demanded, voice low and steady, but Isabella could feel the tension radiating off him. A flash of recognition danced in Marcus's eyes, a dawning fright that twisted her stomach. Just as she opened her mouth to ask what he knew, a deafening noise pealed through the cafe, explosions ringing like thunder. The light flickered, and for a moment, time slowed. The suited men flinched, eyes darting around. The cafe shuddered, and as something heavy slammed against the wall outside, a tremor shaking the ground beneath them. Then, a roar. The door burst open, and a flash of flame flickered through the opening. Isabella stared, frozen, as a figure stepped through the flames, tall, silhouetted, stepping from the inferno like a ghost from a nightmare. "Stop!" The voice cut through the dim lights like a knife, chilling everyone into silence. It was their father. No, that couldn't be right. He was supposed to be... "Isabella! Marcus! Get away from him!" he commanded, eyes fierce. The crowd swirled in disbelief. A cold knot tightened in her stomach. Her father, long thought lost to the shadows of her childhood, stood before them. But something was off. His eyes were wild, haunted. This man was not the father she remembered. "Dad?" she whispered, barely able to breathe. "Now!" he shouted again, urgency sharpening his tone. Before she could comprehend, he lunged forward, arms outstretched, grabbing Marcus by the collar. "You're in danger, all of you." The suited men regained their composure, now fueled with rage. "Get him!" one shouted, surging forward. But Marcus, wide-eyed, stared at their father. "You said you were gone. Why are you here?" In that moment, a sickening realization washed over Isabella. They were just men sent for Marcus. They were after her family. The blend of fear and confusion gnawed at her mind, but clarity struck like lightning. "Run!" her father yelled. But before any of them could move, another explosion rippled through them, tossing her backward. The cafe splitting apart like a paper house. Everything twisted in a blur. Screams morphed into chaos as the world exploded into confusion. The last thing she saw was Samuel's panicked expression, and then darkness swallowed her whole. When she opened her eyes, the cafe was a twisted wreck. Cries filled the air, and smoke slithered around her like a snake. The world had shifted on its axis. The safety she once felt was gone, and then she spotted them. The suited men remained, but her father was nowhere to be seen. Isabella's heart raced, fear clawing at her throat. Where was everyone? What just happened? Desperate, she searched for answers. The truth hanging thick like fog around her, heavy with uncertainty. Suddenly, everything she thought she knew felt like an illusion, shattering like glass in an echo of confusion and chaos. The storm had barely begun, and she was at its center. Isabella blinked against the haze of smoke, tension crackling in the air like static electricity. The cafe lay in ruins, and the chaos clawing at her mind felt suffocating. She could hear distant sirens wailing, but all she could focus on was the emptiness left in the wake of her father's abrupt departure. Panic clawed at her throat as she tried to catch a breath, the fear smoldering in her chest like a dying ember. "Samuel, Marcus," she shouted, eyes darting around desperately. The world spun beneath her feet, memories flooding back like a tide rushing in. Where were they? What had happened to them? She staggered forward, her vision clouded by the smoke. Then, through the swirling chaos, a figure emerged from the shadows, tall, imposing, face obscured by a mask. Her heart dropped. It was one of the suited men. A chill spread through her as he stepped forward, as if determined to become the embodiment of her fears. But then, an unexpected sound broke through. The door burst open again, and a frantic, breathless voice cut through the air. "Wait!" The masked figure turned sharply, startled. The tension in the room seemed to warp, and everyone paused. Isabella squinted, her breath catching. The voice belonged to Jenna, her friend from the engineering team. She stood there, wild-eyed, clutching a strange device. "It's not what you think," Jenna gasped, panting heavily. "I was at the other building. I saw everything." Dot! Confusion painted Isabella's face. "What are you talking about?" Jenna took a step closer, desperation in her eyes. "Listen to me. I know who's behind this. It's not just Marcus, your father. He had ties, connections that go way beyond what you think." Isabella's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" Questions clashed in her head. But then, just as the words formed in her mind, the masked man lunged forward. The cafe erupted once more into chaos. "Get out of here!" Isabella screamed, pulling Jenna back as the room jolted with shouts. The sirens blared louder now, drowning out her thoughts. The masked man reached for her. Just then, a loud crash erupted from the back of the cafe, followed by splintering wood. A wall crumbled as a massive figure burst through the wreckage. A man in heavy gear, armored, clearly in charge. "Move!" he shouted, eyes darting around, scanning for threats. He pointed at the masked figure, his voice booming. "Talon!" In that instant, something shifted in the masked man's demeanor. He hesitated, almost as if caught in a web of fear and recognition. "Don't do this!" he stammered, glancing furtively around, as if weighing his options. "Do what?" Marcus shouted, still struggling to reach Isabella. And that's when the shock hit. The masked man suddenly whipped off his mask. Time seemed to freeze. Isabella felt her breath leave her as recognition dawned. "Samuel?" The panic in his expression morphed into something darker. "Isabella." "I didn't," but the armored man stepped in, grabbing Samuel by the collar. "Your time is up. You can't protect her anymore." Isabella's heart raced as whispers of betrayal and secrets crested like waves around her. Everything she thought she understood flipped upside down in a heartbeat. Samuel wasn't who she thought he was. There was an insidious undercurrent running through her life, threading through her family. "Protect me from what?" Her voice wavered, raw with confusion. "What have you been hiding?" But before Samuel could answer, screams erupted as the armored man tightened his grip. The cafe shook and groaned, walls wobbling like jelly, and Isabella's world came crashing down around her. Jenna's eyes blazed with certainty, yet uncertainty glimmered within them, a blend of solidarity and fear. "Isabella, you must choose, now!" Everything teetered on the edge of chaos. Truth hung in the balance, threatening to snap and break. But Isabella's world had already shattered, and as she searched for answers, only one thought remained. Everything was about to change forever. Isabella's heart pounded as the armored man tightened his grip on Samuel. The chaos of the cafe faded into the background as her thoughts raced. "What's going on?" Alex demanded, trying to catch his breath as he stood among the debris. It felt like time slowed. The world was a mess of confusion and fear. But a flicker of determination sparked inside Isabella. "You need to let him go," she shouted, stepping forward, her voice trembling but resolute. The masked man flinched, eyes darting from Isabella to Samuel, then back again. "This is bigger than you think," he said, voice cracking under the weight of his own panic. "They'll stop at nothing." "You don't have to do this," Jenna added, her own voice steadier than she felt. "We can work together to figure this out!" Samuel strained against the armored man's grip, a fierce fire burning in his eyes. "You don't know what you're walking into, Isabella. Trust me." Suddenly, a shattering noise rang from above. A hefty beam creaked under pressure and fell with a loud crash, missing them by inches. The crowd gasped, and Isabella's heart jumped. "We need to get out of here," she urged, panic clawing at her throat. "Follow me," the armored man commanded, releasing Samuel, who stumbled back. Without thinking, Isabella grabbed Samuel's hand, urgency propelling her forward. "This way," she shouted, leading the way to the back exit, Jenna right behind them. As they burst outside, the sunlight struck her face, and the chaos of the street swarmed around them. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of burning debris. People ran in every direction, confusion spilling into chaos. "Over here!" the armored man shouted, gesturing to an alley. They dove into the narrow passage as the panic roared behind them, the thrum of sirens growing. Isabella's chest tightened. "What happens now?" she asked, breathlessly, heart still racing. "Whew!" Samuel looked at her, wild-eyed. "They're not just after us. They want everyone involved. Your father, he's mixed up in something dangerous." "What do you mean? I thought he was gone." Isabella's voice trembled, uncertainty gripping her tightly. "I'll explain everything," he insisted. "But first, we need to get to safety. They'll keep looking for us." A distant roar echoed as more explosions rocked the area. The tension built within Isabella, a mix of fear and adrenaline driving her. She could feel the truth lurking just beyond her grasp, ready to burst forth like fireworks. Yet a chill settled in her heart. "Hey!" Jenna interrupted, breathing heavily. "We can't stay here. We need to figure out what's happening." Suddenly, a faint voice called out, "Isabella!" Startled, she turned. It was Marcus, emerging from another alley, bloodied but alive, his face drawn tight with panic. Relief washed over her like the tide, but it was quick to fade. "What happened?" she shouted. They took Dad," he gasped, his expression darkening as shadows passed over his face. "I followed them. I know where we need to go next." Isabella's heart sank. The mystery was deeper than she imagined. They were tangled in a web of family secrets, but there was no time to dwell on it. The urgency turned everything into a blur of movement. "Let's move," the armored man ordered, cutting through the chaos. They sprinted down narrow streets, weaving between debris and frightened bystanders until they turned a corner, out of sight of the cafe's wreckage. Finally, they stopped to catch their breath, panting heavily against a wall. Isabella's mind spun with the weight of everything. Her father, Samuel, the explosion, Marcus! "What do we do now?" she murmured, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Find the answers," Samuel replied. Determination carving his features. Together, A heavy silence fell as they all exchanged glances, each harboring their own thoughts about the truth yet to be unveiled. Secrets that danced just within the shadows, waiting to be brought to light. In that moment, she felt an inkling of hope flicker within her. It would be a long, difficult path, but they were in it together. Little did they know, this was just the beginning. As the sirens faded into the distance, Isabella felt the uncertainty ahead, shrouded in mystery and uncharted territory. But she was ready to dive in, ready to uncover the layers that hid behind the surface. And you better get ready too. You don't want to miss what's coming next. So subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comment section with your reactions and theories about what happens next. And for goodness sake, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even a second longer to share.